Well, how about it, y'all? This is Daniel Nicholson with Nicholson Farms, and welcome back to another video. It is a hot and brutal day here in South Carolina. It's about 5:30 in the afternoon right now, and I think it's about 93 degrees out there with 100% humidity. It feels like it's pretty brutal out there, and I've got to get out there and go to the garden here in a little while. But the other day while we were working the goats and kind of going through all their bucklings and doelings, I realized I never made a video on all the numbers and how we did during kidding season, and I really like to go through the numbers and kind of look on how we did, what we can improve on. And I did a video on this last year, so I figured we'd go ahead and do another one this year and just kind of see how we did. So I've got several numbers written down here on the paper. I'm not going to make you look at me the whole time. I'm going to throw a couple clips in here throughout kidding season with the does having babies and just the babies running around, and you can look at those and just kind of listen to how we did, and we'll tie it all back in the end about how we would like to improve next year and some things that we would do different. So to start off with, we had a pretty tight kidding season this year. It was a 28 days kidding season. We started on April the 3rd and ended April the 28th. Clyde did a great job. He covered most of the nannies. Out of the 32 kids that were born, 27 of them were Clyde's, or within that 2-week window, which would have been Clyde's. And then the other 5 was from potentially our boar buck. I really do think those were from our boar buck, just looking at the kids. Their coloration and kind of the way they're built, I do believe they're our boar cross kids. But we ended up with 17 girls and 15 boys. We did lose one boy at birth. I don't think he ever got the sack off his mouth. He passed away. And then we lost one girl. Something just wasn't right, and we had to put her down. But to kind of go back to last November when we bred 28 does. And out of the 28 does, 6 of those does aborted. That was probably our biggest struggle this year, just far as our percentage of kids. It really hurt. That's at least 6 kids potentially that we lost, if not more. Probably definitely more. But those does are gone. We sold all 6 of those does that aborted. We still don't really know the 100% the cause of the abortion. We believe it might be toxoplasmosis, which comes from cat feces that might have got on the hay or picked up on the pasture. We just really don't know. It's still a potential out there that it could have been something else. But out of those 28 does, we had 22 left, and 21 of those 22 kidded out. And that gave us 32 kids. If we include breeding all 28 does, the ones that aborted and all, we had a pretty bad kidding rate of 114%. 21% of our does was part of that abortion. But if you take them out of the picture and you just had that one doe that was a yearling that didn't breed, we had 145%, which I really shoot for 150%. That's really where you need to be to kind of just start clearing some profit off of goats, is about that 150% kidding rate. But we'll take it. I never have bred yearling does this year, and I've got some more numbers later on that we're going to kind of break that down and see if that's going to be something that we potentially do in the future. I believe last year we had, I think we were right at 160 or 170% kidding rate. I'd have to go back and look. But we had a lot of young nannies this year that only had one kid apiece. Some first-time moms. They wasn't yearlings, but they were first-time moms, and that ties into your kidding rate. A lot of times your first-time moms are going to have one, and they typically pick up their kidding rate later on in life. It's just that first time getting bred is a lot of stress on them and a lot of stress on their body. And typically, from what I've seen in the herd that I've had in the past, we typically get one kid on our first time around. So we can go on and kind of break it down to first-time moms versus mature moms versus yearlings. So we had 7 first-time moms, and out of those first-time moms, we had a 129% kidding rate. Like I mentioned earlier, your first-time does typically only having one. So 129% is really not that bad, I didn't think. And I'm kind of proud of them. We had a couple struggles with moms not really wanting to cling to their kids at first, but as time went on, they did a really good job and raised some pretty nice kids. We also had 12 mature moms, and this is what shows you, mature moms are going to have more kids, have a higher kidding rate. Out of our 12 mature moms, we had 167% kidding rate. But out of that 167%, one of those kids did pass away. That's the one that we really don't know 100% what happened, some kind of illness. And then that brings us to our yearlings. We had 3 yearlings that we threw in the pasture this year, and I didn't want to separate just 3 goats and have them separate, and we took a chance and we went ahead and bred those. And out of those 3 yearlings, 2 of them bred, and one of them gave us twins, the other one gave us a single, and one that did not breed that still remains in the herd was in that yearling group. So overall, like I said earlier, we had take what number you want. We had the 28 does before abortion, 114%, and the 21 does after abortion at 145%. Still lower than where I wanted to be this year, but we had a lot of unforeseen circumstances with the abortion, and we were also breeding a lot of young first-time moms. So to kind of reflect on our kidding season, some things that I would probably do different. Of course, that abortion, that's something that we need to be looking out for a little harder. Definitely culling those nannies out of the herd. Whatever's causing that abortion is a weakness in my eyes, is something I want to get rid of. The way I've got it figured, I had 6 out of 28 that did it. So there's something in that herd that is resilient to whatever was causing that abortion. So it's definitely something we want to get out of there. Some other things I kind of want to do a little different is be a little harder on culling split teats on nannies, and also large and engorged teats. I know we have that one doe out there that we had a lot of trouble with engorged teats. She's going to be going this year. This is her last strike. She's had several strikes against her in the past. That was just kind of the last one. We're going to go ahead and get rid of her. We're also going to start looking at the other nannies. We're also going to start culling pretty hard on our doelings with split teats. Whenever we worked all the goats the other day, we looked at every single little doeling's teat structure, make sure there wasn't any split teats, and we did have 2 that had split teats, so they are on the cull list. Probably going to hold on to my mature nannies that already have split teats. I know I probably shouldn't do that, but if I did make that cull right now, it'd probably split my mature herd in about half. And I can't financially do that. I don't want to take that big of a step back. It's just going forward. We're definitely going to be culling the younger ones that have that trait out. And something we're going to kind of talk about here in a second, I'm really considering breeding my first-time moms first. But we're going to talk about that in just a second. But what we did like about the kidding season is I was very strict this year about making sure mineral was with the goats 24/7 all year long this past year, especially during breeding season and during kidding season. And I do think that played a big role. The other day when we were working the goats, we did have to deworm a good many of them, but with the humidity around here, that's just something we have to deal with. Love to get away from it, but it's going to take a long process to do that. But I think mineral played a big part in keeping our does pretty healthy through their pregnancy. We worked all the goats back in November, the 1st of November in 2021. And when we did that, we trimmed feet, we dewormed who needed to be dewormed. And at that point, I think only about 50% of them had to be dewormed. And after that, we haven't touched them. A week ago, here we are in the 1st of July, and that's the first time we've dewormed anything. So that was about 8 to 9 months that nothing got dewormed, and I contributed that a lot to the mineral this year. A lot of that has to do with rotation as well, but a lot of it is the mineral. Minerals are very crucial to goats, and I think it is very beneficial. Another thing I liked, kind of hard to say it paid off because of, our numbers this year with the abortion situation. But I think our preconditioning our does before breeding and preconditioning them a little bit before kidding and a little after kidding with feed is working well. That's something that I'm really going to continue doing, at least until we get our hands on some bigger property for as leases, or either buying some property to put goats on. Just making sure all those mothers' nutrition levels are completely met before breeding and before they have a kid, and while they have a kid on the ground, I think is very, very crucial. And I think the outcome of our kidding season for our weight on our kids and just the health of our kids shows that from some of that nutritional standpoint. Another thing that I really, really like, and that's why we decided to get another Kiko buck, is the kids this year. I've noticed a huge difference in the kids just getting up and moving. A lot of times with boar kids in the past, they'll lay around, they'll get up, they'll start sucking, they'll lay around, they'll get up, and they'll start sucking. But these Kiko babies, the mamas cleaned them off. They were up within 5 to 10 minutes, trying to find that teat, getting after it, and following the moms around the pasture. And it shows a lot in their growth. They're really growing this year. I think they're doing a great job, and I think that has a lot to do with the breed. Being those Kikos, they're a little bit of a less tamed, I guess, that's the way you say it, less tamed genetics. Not as used to human contact. They were bred to get up and make a living, and so I think that's showing up in our kids. So that's some things that I liked and some things that I would do different in our last kidding season. And going into next year, I got several different little thoughts. I'm really toying around with breeding my yearling and my first time nannies a little earlier than the rest of the herd. This will give us time to focus on those nannies, make sure those nannies are taking care of those babies. I know our kidding season was only 28 days, but it was a busy 28 days. And at the beginning, you know, me and Maddie both were gung-ho, out there every chance we got to check on new moms, making sure those kids were taken care of, the moms were doing a good job. And so I think by advancing our kidding season by 2 weeks just on the yearlings or the young does, the yearlings are the first time moms, that'll give us a big advantage, just, you know, emotionally and physically, with me and Maddie being more excited about babies being there and watching them. I think it'll pay off, making sure those moms are taking care of those babies, and then breeding the mature ones about 2 weeks later. So everything's still a tight kidding season, but just giving an extra 2 weeks for those first time moms, for us to make sure those first time moms are really taking care of their kids. Kind of brings me to my next subject. I didn't really write it down on my sheet here, but we are going to go forward with breeding yearlings. We're really trying to grow our herd, and a profitable animal produces a kid every year of its life in my eyes. And I know that might be a little controversial to people. A lot of people say you need to wait until they're, you know, fully grown or 75% or more body weight. Whenever you're looking at their mother, you know, you can kind of see the size of her mom, make sure that baby's about 70% size of her mom. And I agree with that. And honestly, when it comes down to it, when it's time to breed, if I have somebody that did not grow properly, that's not the size that should be being bred, I'm probably going to cull that animal out the herd. I just think having an animal in a separate herd, at least right now in our program, to hold back from breeding is just a hindrance on us, a hindrance on our resources as far as our grass and our pastures. And it's not something I'm too interested in doing right now. And I really need that animal to start making me a profit within a year. And there are animals out there that'll do it. We had 2 that did it this year, and they did it real well. They got some nice kids on the ground. And those are the animals we want to keep their genetics in our herd. And the ones that do not perform, whether they have a kid and the kid doesn't grow well and the mom loses weight and doesn't stay up condition, those will be animals up for discussion to being culled out of our herd. And that kind of leads me into my next topic, is to cull bad moms. Any mom that I've got to force her to take a kid is not a mom that's going to do well in the end where I want to be. Where I really want to be one day is having 500 to 1,000 goats on a piece of property where it's a hands-off kidding season. I don't have to intervene. I don't have to lock up a mom, make her take a baby. That's just not something I'm going to have time for if I have that many goats, number one. And number two, it's just not a desired trait and not something I want to have. So I want to be a little harder on my culling next year on moms, unless there's, you know, some weird situations. We had a different situation this year with that kid goat that had to be bottle fed. The mom had 2 kids. One was about half the size of the other one. It was a cold, rainy day. The other baby got up and got to sucking, and the other one just didn't get up and start sucking properly. So there's some circumstances, but that'll work itself out. But we just want to kind of start cutting down on that kind of stuff. Also, I've said it before, and it comes down to a time thing and an effort thing. I really want to start really starting to push more rotational grazing, breaking our pastures up, making sure those moms are getting the good stuff for 1 or 2 days, and then moving them on to some more good stuff, not overgrazing our pasture. That's pretty much our kidding season in a wrap, how everything went, how everything produced. I really appreciate y'all hanging out with us. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and leave us a comment, and we'll see y'all on the next one.